Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a short discussion video for you. And what I've been thinking about and what I want to talk with you guys about and actually get your feedback on is, what's the deal with the sort of bias against smartwatches in the watch community? Is it that it's a computer on your arm instead of a watch? Because anyway, there are a couple things that I suspect, but the first thing I wanted to point out is I have to share my own bias. I kind of like smartwatches for certain applications, and I wear them and use them for particular things, and I find them quite useful for those things. Okay, and I've already talked about this, but if you're, here are just a couple of quick examples of where I see a smartwatch being super useful. So one, I'm working around the house, outside, cutting grass or whatever. I don't want my cell phone in my pocket because of the risk it could fall or get broken, or I'm doing something that's sweaty and dirty, whatever. I could throw a smartwatch on and leave my phone in the house where it's relatively safe. And if I get a phone call, if I'm listening to music and I want to switch song, like as long as I'm close enough to maintain the connection, I still get most of the functionality of my phone, but on my wrist. Furthermore, there are times where I'm doing something, driving, skiing, biking, things like that, where it's not convenient to answer the phone, but tapping my wrist and talking to my hand is pretty convenient. And so again, there's a place, and when I'm doing some of those things, like especially if I'm biking, I often throw my phone in my backpack because I'm afraid if it's in my pocket and I fall, I'll land on it and break it. So again, I find a great deal of utility in being able to tap my watch and answer a call and have a conversation the whole time my phone is in my backpack. I'm a firefighter, so sometimes I get pages, and so the notification for texts, there's a certain number that the text always comes from, and it's just a random set of numbers, but it's one that I recognize because it's been so many years. So if I'm, even though I can't hear what the call is, if I see on my watch, oh, I've gotten a text from that number, I know it's a fire call, and I can stop and check what's going on. So all of those things are points to me in favor of a smartwatch. Furthermore, there are a couple of other things. Some smartwatches, so the Gerber Fenix 6 here, and there are a number of Gerber watches that can do this. This has built-in GPS functionality. Even if you don't have your phone, this has a GPS signal and can help you, get where you want to go, as long as you know a little bit of something about where you are. You're not going to be able to search on it and find something and enter coordinates and, that stuff you're going to need to connect it to your phone or to a computer to do. But at least you can take a look at a map, see where you are, see where various landmarks are, and you can also set a bearing and, it'll take you there. I know there are dumb watches that can do that as well, or smart-ish, less smart watches that can do that as well. So the first part of this video, the first couple of minutes, I just wanted to make the argument that, hey, there's some real utility here. The second part, and that brings us to the other side of this, adding extra utility to watches has always been a thing. Like, if you look over sort of the history of watches, there was a time where, over time is what I was trying to say there, as we've had the technological ability to add features, add complications to watches, we've done it. All right. So, it may be, a chronograph, right? It may be a chronograph. It may be 24 hours. It may be a day-date complication. It may be a perpetual calendar complication. I mean, tons and tons. There are all kinds of complications that have been added to watches. The one that I think is kind of neat are there are a few watches out there that show the moon phase. There are GMTs and world time watches where you can track the time in different locations or 2, 3, whatever other locations. There are alarms. There are all kinds of tools that we have added to watches, mechanically to increase their functionality. And really, even beyond that, when it came to quartz watches, back in the 80s, we had this guy that everyone thought was so cool because it had all this extra functionality. Now you've got a calculator and you can store, what was it, 19 numbers or something on here. So it seems like over the years it's been a thing, and even some watches that people really, that watch people do enjoy. The Oceanus here is pretty well thought of by, watch enthusiasts, and it has a number of technological features built into it. It connects to your phone. It can connect to the Greenwich Mean Time satellite to set itself. It gets power from solar. It has a Find My Phone feature. Like, there's a bunch of stuff built into this, even though it's an analog face. There are a bunch of things going on there that are pretty technologically advanced, and to me, rather cool. Okay. So I think it's equally kind of cool that I have, a watch here that can do all kinds of things, that can add appointments to my calendar, that can track my fitness, that can, and I don't even have, that can track my location, that can, switch my Spotify playlist. Like, these are useful things. This one is the 3 words function. So, to me, all this stuff is pretty cool, and it's kind of neat that we can have this on our wrist. And as technology allows, I suspect there'll come a time where we maybe don't even have the phone that I'm recording this on, as we're able. My watch here may be able to do everything that the phone can do, and we get to the point where I don't even need the phone. And so, I feel like smartwatches were just the next step in the evolution of something you wear on your wrist that has a lot of functionality. And my argument essentially to those watch enthusiasts who really feel negatively towards smartwatches is, really a smartwatch is sort of the inevitable, end point. And, I know we're not at the end point yet of technology, but, there have been all kinds of efforts through history to, move the watch, move horology forward and add more features. And, so here are the 2 things that I think probably play into this. First of all, it's less impressive downloading an app. All right. Now, there's a lot of work that goes into coding, and a lot of us don't know how to code very well. Like, we don't know much about it. So maybe that's part of the lack of appreciation. All right. We know a little more about the mechanics that's involved in, adding a chronometer or, adding a perpetual calendar or something like that. And you have to admit that doing that mechanically is really cool. Okay. But if you're going to admit that, like, you also kind of have to admit that having the ability to now take that calendar, put appointments in it, associate those appointments with names and phone numbers and, all kinds of other details, like, that's pretty cool and worthwhile as well. All right. So that's the first argument or whatever that I'm sort of making is, that perhaps the detraction is it seems too easy. All right. But I don't actually think it's that easy. Okay. Secondly, I think one of the detractors is that it's kind of an everyday thing, right? Everybody's wearing a smartwatch these days. So there's nothing especially cool or different or unique about it, especially compared to, some of the cool watches that we all appreciate. And I think that needs to be accounted for, that to some degree, it's like, well, this is what the normies do. So if you're in the community, you want to be a step above and beyond what they're doing. But I have an extra element here as well. One of the interesting things that's happened is because of the popularity of smartwatches, Dumb watches, which I'm just doing that in contrast, but regular watches have also grown in popularity, and they were really, there was a time, if you can remember back to, when they made the movie with where. Oh, now I can't think of his name. Anyway, the two actors become interns at Google because the watch business goes defunct. Sorry, my dog is freaking out. I hope you can't hear it. But back then, watches were really losing popularity, but because of the smartwatch, it's sort of come full circle. Anyway, guys, those are my thoughts on this. I would love to hear your feedback. Do you like smartwatches as well as regular watches? Do you strictly stick to one or the other? If so, let me hear your opinion down in the comments below. Don't forget to check out those links. The channel sponsors are a huge help, and it really helps the channel when you use them. We will talk to you soon.